Okay.
It follows that it cannot be our task to find an absolutely correct theory or a picture.
Luis Del Pino. Yes. I'm in the Zoom meeting, and so you can join me by typing in my phone number and no password. Isn't that wonderful? Well, it'll take you to like a waiting room, and then I'll let you in for security. Okay, bye.
As simple as possible, and that represents phenomena as accurately as possible. One might even conceive of two quite different theories, both equally simple and equally
Luis Del Pino is going to join us.
Their difference are equally correct. The assertion that a
Let's
given theory
see.
is the only correct one
It should
can
show
only
up
express our
right here.
subjective conviction that there could not be another equally simple and fitting image. 6. In summary,
Let's see. Let's see. Live. I'm gonna start a hello friends and enemies and Facebook friends and enemies. Oh, what happened? I'm waiting for a friend. I'm waiting for Luis Del Pino to join us. Let's see, it's a Zoom meeting. And the topic is going to be on the philosophy of science. We're gonna discuss an article that we were supposed to read called Boltzmann's, I just woke up, Concept of Reality. So I'm gonna admit my friend Luis Del Pino. Okay, there he is. Luis! Oh, wait a minute. How's that? Oh, wait a minute. Speakers. Hello. Wait a minute. Unmute. Unmute audio.
Oh, good morning.
Luis.
I was muted. I'm sorry. Oh, uncouth.
You were muted. You unmuted yourself.
Just like that.
I was trying to unmute you from here. But, oh, but I can mute you.
You like can mute me, huh?
Or I can mute you, unmute you. Also with a keyboard, I can go Alt A.
Destroy.
Unmutes me.
Alt A destroy.
Alt A mutes me.
Go from stun. What's the?
Alt A mutes or unmutes me. It toggles.
This reminds me of what was the Toy Stories? The spaceman, and he says, "Go from set from stun to kill." With his toy gun.
We could destroy the world with this toy here.
Well, good morning. We are ready to go. Do you get the feel that David is not going to join us today? Because he said he could not host, but he did not say he could not attend.
Oh, that's good. There's hope. I mentioned it to Rami. And
how was the meeting yesterday, by the way?
I mentioned it to a guy named, I forgot his name. Oh, Mike Cordero at a meetup last night, Rami and I attended a meetup.
Yes.
With the Stoics, with Dan Stoic, and
How did that go?
And so I mentioned it to Mike Cordero. He might enjoy it. I don't know if
Well, what was the subject of the meeting? It was something.
Epictetus.
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 Yeah.
Epictetus. It was.
Listen, you need to. We need to go ahead and invite. I'm gonna do that on my phone while I. Hold on a second. I'm not going anywhere. I'm gonna invite Francisco.
Meetups. What's going on?
Francisco.
Oh, I spelled it wrong.
Join Zoom 407 dash 486 dash.
Oh, you don't need the dash, but yeah.
Oh, okay. 407. But can you remind me the number?
486. No, wait a minute. 407-486-8642. That's my phone number.
Yes.
It's
okay, here we go. I sent him a little WhatsApp. 474868642. Perfect. Let's see if we have the pleasure. And what about David? You need to wake him up, or. But by the way, what is the subject of the day?
Yes, we're going to discuss Boltzmann's concept of reality.
It could be too deep for this Saturday morning.
Yes, we're in the deep. But I didn't read it 5 times, but I listened and read it once.
Then I'm very curious to know what you think of what these two guys wrote about Boltzmann. What is your impression?
Yes, I sensed that he was trying to make science more open-minded, less dogmatic. And he was trying to get scientists to say, okay, so you don't like this theory and you like that theory. So that doesn't mean you should let go of this theory, because
of either of them.
It's it's what?
Both of them have their value and their perspective. They can describe reality as a whole from a different angle.
Yes, each theory is what is
not completely right and not completely wrong.
Each theory is like a representation of reality, because you can't say that a theory is reality. Each theory is a representation.
Very good. So
is our a helpful image or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
To help us understand reality, to help us use reality, to help mankind deal with reality, but it's not reality. So we should
itself
a theory with reality and say, okay, this is the best reality. So we should erase all the other.
That is correct. So you got it.
All realities, even the reality, the theory of that the Earth is flat. That could be considered a reality that works for
a very short distance.
I can see.
Yeah.
It works for us. So
that's right. The Earth is flat as far as you're concerned. If you only look at 100 square feet.
Even in the early Buddhist, or there's the practice of offering the world to the Buddhas, and it imagines the reality or the Earth as something like a flat table, and there's things on top of it and things underneath it.
Right.
So
So you got the gist of it for sure. But one thing that I really liked about that was precisely that openness, that what I call quite often anymore perspectivism, because one of the problems that the human mind has in understanding reality is a narrow scope. So if we look at things too closely, too narrowly, we miss the big picture, and then we make decisions that are inappropriate. We get all uptight. We don't have this flexibility of perspective. Um, the so that's the first thing. Relax. It is what it is. Reality is what it is. Let's look at it from a distance. Let's not get too close to it, because then we get the tanha, the thirst feeling for being and non-being, for the sensory. We get too attached to our sensory impressions, and we are not able to detach. In French, they say prendre du recul, to step back, to look at reality and be able to study it in its wholeness, in oneness, in its integrity. So when we do that, we're able to better, I would say, deliberate, better think, better cognate, and not make mistakes with our emotions and impulses. So this anti-dogmatism, this push towards perspectivism, openness, flexibility of views, is something that I really right away I connected with. It is very reminiscent of E.O. Wilson, who talks about consilience. I always mention him because he says that one cannot know anything from only one perspective. In order to know something very well, you have to use a variety of different perspectives and sciences, different angles, so you know it well, you understand it fully. So in that regard, I was already making the parallel. So openness of views, this diversification of your perspectives in understanding anything in this universe that is infinite and eternal. So I found it extremely refreshing. Now we have to understand too that this Boltzmann guy was under a lot of duress, because he had it clear in his mind that the universe was made of tiny atoms. And that went against the pervading scientific view that the universe was energy, but it was not quantized. So he had a very big battle, because in his mind he was absolutely convinced that gases, for example, which was his big stuff, were composed of very tiny particles, molecules. And atoms, I don't know if he knew the distinction between atoms and molecules. I don't know. I haven't studied enough in that. But he knew that things were broken down into individual little particles. And he hypothesized that the temperature of a gas in a specific place was directly due to the kinetic energy of each one of the particles. And he did averages and computations, and he came to the conclusion that within a certain volume, with a certain amount of molecules flying around or moving around the space, it would be determining the pressure, the temperature, and he could compute the average speed of movement of a molecule in the air, and the speeds are staggering at the room temperature. I just read this morning that a molecule of nitrogen travels at 900 and something feet per second, or something crazy. I mean, extremely high speeds on an average. And of course, because they're so small, when they impact us, because right now there's air molecules impacting on my skin. They are so small that we only feel the average kinetic energy of the whole trillions of molecules flying around us, and that average of that kinetic energy gives the temperature of the room at the given pressure. That is phenomenal. 100 and some years ago, this guy was already in his mind understanding this dynamic play of molecules and particles, and everybody was looking at him like it was absolutely crazy.
Oh, you mentioned consilience, the unit
Yes.
of knowledge by a Edward Osborne Wilson.
Yes.
Why do you find that book valuable to your view of how to deal with reality?
I discovered Wilson after I had spent a lot of time studying by myself the issues or ideas or questions about life and what should I do, how should I live, how should I feel, what is the right thing, what is the wrong thing, what is practical, what is not. And I had been spending quite a bit of time reading. I started reading the different spiritual Bibles, and then I read many philosophers, and then I ended up discovering Buddhism, the Dharma, or Dhamma. And I started making my own world vision. I discovered that I needed to precisely understand statements or conclusions from other thinkers with a very open perspective, because some of the things that I read made no sense whatsoever at the beginning. And then as I changed my views or my perspectives, I could find sense in them, but only from that perspective. So what doesn't make any sense from perspective A makes a heck of a lot of sense from perspective Z. So if you use A and Z, then you are able to see a concept, an idea, a belief, or a feeling, or truth much better, because you can say, yes, this is this truth that we're talking about, but this truth from this angle makes a lot of sense, from this angle doesn't make any sense. So it helps you make your thinking dynamic. And after I had come to this conclusion, I bumped on the Wilson, E.O. Wilson, that says, that kind of coined the term consilience, which is to use a priori very different sciences like physics and psychology, for example, two completely different sciences, physics and psychology. One just measures what is, the other one measures how we feel, how we think about what is. And in the combination of two apparently absolutely different sciences that have nothing to do with each other, when you can find consilience between them, then you understand any idea or conception or term that is pinned between them. And what he wrote a book in which he has a little diagram, and it has a point in the middle. It has like a square with 4 subsquares, and in the middle there is a concept, an idea, or something that we're discussing, and then each one of the squares is different sciences, like I don't know, climate science, economics, physics, and psychology, or something like that. And he says that the more we go closer to the theme at hand, the less each one of the sciences is involved in it. It's just like, what is in psychology does not pertain to physics. But as you go wider in your understanding and you go wider in your perspective, all of a sudden the same point that you are analyzing now is involved in both sciences. You're able to kind of bounce off, you know, from the physical point, from the psychological point, from the climate science point, from the economics point, et cetera, et cetera.
Trying to look for a word that describes that's used more in politics. Something that when Barack Obama became president, he was trying to make it his an effort of going across the aisle and bringing them in. What is that called? What or you?
There is a word in politics that they use that is. It will come back, but I know exactly what you're talking about.
Or you're trying to bring them in and not necessarily negotiate.
It's funny, no, because it's a word, when you hear it, it makes it sound like you do not cooperate on both sides of the aisle, but that's what it is. It is talking about using both sides of the aisle to create or generate a policy or a change in the law.
But then the problem is then your constituent or people looking back in history and says, oh, he went on their side and didn't.
That's right.
For what we wanted, and
that's right. That's right.
But in science and in what?
Well, I would say that a good word to use other than consilience that people typically haven't bumped against, or they haven't studied it, or they don't understand it very well. We could use the word a super perspective, you know, like an omni perspective. So looking at any phenomenon from an array of different perspectives.
Well, there's a definition in a dictionary for consilience. It says agreement between the approaches to a topic of different academic subjects. So you're agreeing, looking at all the different approaches, all the different academic sciences, and trying to come to some agreement, especially in science and humanities. And it sounds like from the article, Boltzmann's concept of reality, that he was trying to do that because yeah, I imagine at that time, that was before Einstein theory of reality and maybe ideas of the what is it, quantum and other things they were starting to think about. And so maybe they were arguing, there were philosophers versus scientists. Well, philosophers that were involved in science were promoting that there shouldn't be atoms, and then scientists that were using data were trying to show that there are atoms as things. And maybe this Boltzmann was trying to do some kind of consilience.
Without a doubt. That's why I think that he didn't use that word, but he was talking exactly about that.
He was trying to tell the philosophers, scientists, I guess the idealist kind of scientist versus the realist kind of scientist. Like the realist kind of scientists were promoting that atoms do exist as inherently existent objects, and idealist kind of scientists were trying to say, no, there's no such thing as atoms, or maybe it's just energy or something else. Right? And so he was trying to come to or trying to satisfy both sides. He was trying to say that okay, you idealists, go ahead and continue that way, but think of oh, you're back. Oh, I have to click on admit. Yeah, the Boltzmann was trying to tell the idealist philosopher scientist to not get stuck on that there isn't atoms, but to treat the idea of atoms as a model that will help deal with experiments, and go ahead and continue not having to believe, but just treat it as a model, a representation perhaps that might work in running experiments. And then and that maybe that was kind of his consilience, or to try to bring the other side in. He went across the aisle. Oh, I forgot, or I'm still having. Oh, you're muted. Or maybe I have to unmute you. Let's see.
Sorry, I was.
Oh, now I muted you.
No, I'm sorry. I disconnected without. I didn't do it on purpose. And then when I came in, but I was going to say that the partisan is the word that they use in politics. A partisan effort. So basically, two opposite poles in politics that make an effort together. But it's partisan because each party has their own thing. So, but they come together. So partisan to me sounds like uncooperative, only from one side, from one party. But partisan effort is when they both work together across the aisle. So
yeah, so Boltzmann was trying to work across the aisle to bring the idealist philosopher scientist over to the idea that okay, so don't accept that atoms exist, but at least treat it as a model, as a theory. And so maybe that's why he went into
as a workable perspective.
Yeah, to treating theories not as real, but as
dogmas,
models, right. as representations,
what I find so beautiful in this kind of thinking, whether it is from Boltzmann or from Wilson in this case, is that in my own personal experience, after spending a lot of time thinking about different ideas, problems, objects, phenomena, I came to the conclusion that the application of consilience or partisanship in our own representation of life, because you and I are not scientists, so but we still deal with reality just like scientists do, but scientists do deal with reality with very specific items, topics. I want to know what the temperature is doing. Why, when I put my hand in a hot pot, do I get burned? What is happening there? So they're very specific in what they analyze. But you and I, we deal with reality in a heuristic kind of way. Let's make it simple. Let's not complicate ourselves much. If it feels good, if it's okay, if I'm okay with that, that's what I understand. That's what I decide, and that's the way I live. So we are, in a way, amateur scientists representing reality, maybe not with formulas, but you could say that our behavior, our conduct, our life, the way we behave, our character, the way we interact with things and people are our formulas, unscientific formulas to represent what is, which is reality as a whole. And my discovery has been that if I use this kind of approach, the Boltzmann approach or the Wilson approach, in the way I look at my cup of coffee, or the way I drink coffee, or the way I talk to you, the way I position my light, the way I eat, the way I sleep, the way I go to work, the way I buy groceries at the store, the way I drive on I-4, all that, this openness of, okay, let's consider the following and look at it from different perspectives, it brings on phronesis, the Greek word for practical wisdom, which then reverts, remember the trickle-down wisdom, this practical wisdom reverts into all the pyramid of the Maslow's pyramid that goes down all the way down to what I eat, who I live with, how I conduct myself, if I watch TV or I don't watch TV, if I spend my time doing one thing or the other, if I do exercise or don't exercise, if I become a vegan versus a meat eater, et cetera, et cetera. So all of that has been, I can confirm in my own life.
Welcome, Mike. Unmute yourself. He's outside.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning, Mike.
How are you?
We are living science fiction.
Are you in Chicago or something like that?
I'm in Chicago.
Wow.
That's nice.
Nice background, by the way. Nice background. Look at that. There's a beautiful tree.
Are you on a phone or something?
I'm on my deck. My deck.
On your deck. That's your backyard?
Yeah.
Are you using a laptop?
Yep. Actually an iPad.
An iPad. Oh, that's
well. It's. I'm glad that you.
Thanks for inviting. Thank you for inviting.
I'm very glad that you could join. That you could get on this one. This one is a good. We started just a few minutes ago. Jairo and myself. Jairo is hosting. I have invited Francisco, but he hasn't shown up yet, and David Norton, who has been present previously, I don't think he's going to make it today. I don't know why, but we are talking about a beautiful idea. I think I shared it with you yesterday. This short writing about the Boltzmann concept of reality. Boltzmann was a 19th century physicist and mathematician. He became very, very famous. He had a very tough time in his life. As a matter of fact, he committed suicide when he was 60 little. He had bouts of depression and everything, but he was a genius. The guy was a genius, and he was one of the first physicists to have the intuition that reality was made of tiny little particles. So particles, atoms, molecules, et cetera, and of course. At the time, he was way ahead of his time, so of course he suffered for it. He was ridiculed. He had a lot of opposition, and he had a very tough time. He had a very tough time because for most of his life, in the academic world, although he was recognized as a freaking genius, his most fundamental ideas about the nature of reality, which is what us guys talk about most of the time in non-scientific terms, more into philosophical and psychological terms. He had a very, very big opposition, was never recognized until his death. And then, lo and behold, right after his death, Planck himself, Max Planck, recognized him as a freaking genius, and he said, yes, he was right all along. That's the way, the quantum nature of reality. He was already intuiting that. But what I was interested in, and I kind of studied is character.
Luis, I'm so sorry. I've got the dog is barking and it's waking up neighbors. I'll be right back. Sorry.
Go ahead.
I hate to interrupt.
Oh, wonder if I could. No, I can't. I'm gonna try to call. I'm gonna try to call Rami. Let's see if I can call Rami or David. Let's see.
So I will continue what you and I were talking about, which is that it is my personal experience. Oh, you're back. So I discovered this little essay. Non-scientific language, and the ideas of Planck, of Boltzmann, I'm sorry, and he even shared some of his writings. And in them, I immediately saw a lot of myself or my ideas, not in scientific terms, but in philosophical terms. And one of the most important things, and Jairo agreed with me, that he talks about openness of mind. He talks about getting away from dogmatism. He talks about how every physical, every theory, scientific theory, is a representation of reality, which is, what is the real is that, and then we kind of represent ourselves that reality, and then we try to make sense of it. So I immediately felt very comfortable with that because, and you and I have discussed Wilson, E.O. Wilson, and consilience, that is looking at any phenomenon. And when I say phenomenon, I'm talking about an object or an idea, because an idea is a phenomenon, or a feeling, or an emotion, or anything, and look at it from a super perspective, which includes many different angles and sciences. And a fact can be analyzed from many different ways. And the more ways you look at it, the different angles you look at it, the more open-minded you are, and you better understand it. So I felt. Sorry?
Question. Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Unless you want to continue along.
No. That was it. Go ahead.
So what is these aspects of reality? The aspects of reality that the model that you're describing, so that there are many different. So to be open-minded, meaning that there are many different aspects of reality.
There are many different ways to look at the different aspects of reality.
But there's only one?
Well, there's only one reality. Obviously, the same tree that is behind you, we look at the same tree. There's one tree there. Now, what we feel about the tree, how we think about it, how we analyze it, is it good, is it bad, is it beautiful, is it ugly, what is it made of, et cetera, et cetera. Those are the different representations. Sure. Exactly. Of what is behind you.
So, for example, a biologist, a physicist, a painter, an impressionist, completely different.
And a psychologist and a philosopher and everything. So,
this reminds me of the fable of the elephant and the three blind men. So one is feeling the trunk and sees a snake. The other one's feeling the tail, sees a horse, and the other is feeling the leg and the ear and thinks it's a tree.
That's a very good, good imagery. It's the same thing, and you make it very clear right there that if you only focus on one perspective of that phenomenon, you miss out on the big picture, and you make decisions, and you do actions that are flawed because you don't realize you're dealing with an elephant. You think you're dealing with, I don't know, a piece of rope with hair at the end.
Now, the interesting part of that is if the three men were to be able to communicate with one another as we are, they would understand by putting these pieces together that this, in fact, is an elephant.
Absolutely beautiful analogy, because as you are saying, three men together looking at an elephant see the elephant much better than one man. So now I take this further. If I can look at reality, the whole of reality, life, as you and as Jairo and as myself and as Francisco and as David and the other guy and the other guy, my perspective becomes almost universal. So I take everybody's theory as mine, I'm representing, talking about. So I become a multi-mind. in analyzing an object. So your imagery is very, very good, Mike.
This is very interesting, and I think this is also patterned in nature. It's patterned in terms of anthropology and archaeology. For example, if we look at a Mayan ruin in the Yucatan Peninsula, we see that the same type of architecture that was being formulated in Egypt, for example, and it's that idea of perhaps the way that we evolve as human beings. After all, we do all come from Africa. So there is we come from one particular biology, one shared biology. So it's very interesting to me, and it's always interesting that our family from Africa, where are you from? Well, my family's from Africa. Who are you? And that's very interesting to me. But anyway, so we disperse throughout the world, and we come up with the same. Somehow that idea is spawning from this conversation. I'm not sure why, if that's making any sense.
But that's no. It makes a hell of a lot of sense, because you can take that same string of thought, and you can go back to before we were we. When did man become man? We always talk about was the egg or was the egg or the chicken first? Well, I can say, when did the egg become an egg? When did the chicken become a chicken? And wasn't there like a range of becoming before the chicken was a chicken? It was a pre-chicken, a pre-chicken, a pre-pre. That didn't look like a chicken, but it was a chicken in formation. So we can take your analogy back to the beginning of time, which has no beginning. So we are the expression of reality, again, looking at itself.
It's fascinating.
So exactly. The wider we go, the more different perspectives, the more different slants and angles we use in analyzing anything, any aspect of reality, the more it brings lucidity, clairvoyance, in a sense. And I feel that there's a book that says many lives, many masters. I believe that it's many lives and many minds for a super omniscience. So this open-mindedness is what frees the human consciousness to truly understand the world, i.e. to truly understand itself. And from that understanding comes the cessation of suffering. It's like, oh, I got this. So that's my experience.
I knew you were going to text me, by the way, this morning. I wasn't going to bring it up. Well, I knew that, and I'm not, trust me, I'm scientific based, but I was thinking, I was hoping that you would, because I have a little bit of time this morning. This is not me bringing this up because I want to impress Jairo and Luis. Yeah. I'm simply saying that when I saw the text come through, and I know that maybe that's not a supernatural, but maybe does that have anything to do with what you're describing?
Well,
because I knew that you were going to. I was just about to contact you because I was hoping that we could do a Zoom meeting.
Yeah.
And because it was the right moment. Now that I'm here, I'm like, this is so enjoyable.
It is very enjoyable, and I think I just beat you to the punch. It was going to happen no matter what. Anyway. It just didn't happen the way you thought it was going to happen, which was you calling us instead of us calling you.
It's interesting because you're bringing up so many interesting things. The cognitive revolution that we talked about, they say happened something like 80,000 years ago, and we find it in Spain, and we find it in France, right? With the artwork. The cognitive revolution, meaning your question is, when did man become man? Well, we have to ask ourselves, how do you define man?
That's right.
And, so it's this idea of, and we talked a little bit about this, Jairo, which is the the mythology behind the Garden of Eden, which is this idea of being at one with everything and being at peace. And then there's this idea of wisdom or knowledge that our minds have evolved into, and then it's this idea of self. And this would be the cognitive revolution. There are three major revolutions that are understood. Cognitive revolution about 70,000 years ago, the Industrial Revolution, which was not the Industrial Revolution, the Agricultural Revolution, which was about 15,000 years ago. And then an Information Revolution, which would have happened with who was it, Guggenheim, with the printing press?
Yeah.
Those are the
data, the communication revolution. Yeah.
The boom, boom, boom. And
the internet of the 15th century or something like that.
I don't know
being able to print a book.